simple question like okay, example. Let us suppose we have an array, and the array is written something like this: ARR 1300 and 1900. Okay, and its base address is given as let us suppose 1020. Okay, and size of each element is 2 bytes. Element is 2 bytes. Now the question is, find the address of ARR 1700. Can you do that? Just do it fast. Try to solve it. We have an array which is represented something like this. Base address is given as 1020 and
4420.
eh? How much? How come you
No, sir.
calculate so fast? Address of ARR of I. इसका मैंने क्या बोला था फॉर्मूला? Address of any element of an array can be calculated as the base address, क्योंकि वहां से हमारा स्टार्ट होता है, so प्लस ओके width into width मतलब तुम्हारा size of each element into how many elements we are basically going to cross to reach to my ith element, right? How many elements I'm going to cross to reach to my ith element? So how many elements I'm going to cross?
400.
How many? 400, right? That is the index that is given to me, जिसका मुझे एड्रेस निकालना है, minus the lower bound. I hope you remember this. We discussed in the last class. Okay, ये फॉर्मूला सबको याद होगा. So यहाँ पर तुम्हारा बेस एड्रेस कितना है? 1020 plus width is size of each element, that is 2 into I is given as 1700, because error of I, error 1700 I need to find. 1700 minus lower bound here is 1300. The lower bound is, this is lower bound and this is your upper bound, right? So this is like 1020 plus 2 into 400, so 800. So it's like 1820. Okay, anyone who could not understand this? We discussed in the last class. Okay, ये फॉर्मूला हम कैसे निकाले ये हम लास्ट क्लास में देखे थे, राइट? एंड मैंने पूरा एक्सप्लेन किया था कैसे ये फॉर्मूला निकलता है. So I just applied that formula and you can find the address of any element. Sometimes what they do not give you the base address, and what they do, they'll say let's suppose this is example 1 and example 2. Any doubts? Okay, so example 2. So in this case what they do, they will, everything is same, let us suppose everything is same, and they say the address of ARR 1500 is something. Okay, कुछ एक दिया है. Okay, ARR 1500 is, let us suppose 1600. Okay, the address of ARR 1500 is 1600. Find address of ARR 1700. ठीक है, तो ARR 1500 का एड्रेस तुम्हें दिया गया है जो कि 1600 है. तो एरर 1700 का एड्रेस तुम्हें निकालना है. तो कैसे निकालेंगे?
Is it of
From
2
here,
bytes?
हाँ 2 bytes. Everything is same. Everything is same. Only the base address is not given. Okay, the base in this case the base address is not given, and the address of some other element is given. So error 1500. The address of error 1500 is given. That is 1600. So and it is asking to find the address of error 1700. So in this case, first of all, we need to find the address of solution. इसका क्या होगा? First step, find the address, find the base address. इसका base address हम पहले निकालेंगे. Base address कैसे आएगा? बोलो. We are starting from 1300 and going till 1900. Okay, here somewhere your 1500 is there. Okay, somewhere here 1700 is there, right? So to find the base address, ये हमारा इंडेक्स में जो 1300, 1500, 1700, 1900 लिखा हूँ, that is basically your index, not the address. So if I know the address of this location, this index, I can find the address of this location, yes or no? Basically I just need to find like width into 1500. Okay, just give me 1 second. बोलो तुम पहले बताओ, 1 सेकंड बताओ मुझे पहले क्या होगा यहाँ पर. Take 1 minute and tell me. बेस एड्रेस का यहाँ पर बेस एड्रेस का वैल्यू कितना होगा?
तो 1200.
तो
1200.
1200. ओके.
सर 1200.
1200. We are starting from 1300 and 1500 location is given, that is
Yes, sir,
1600.
1200.
1200, right? So basically 1600 minus size of each element into how many elements we have crossed. So that is 1500. This is given here minus the starting index is 1300, right? That will give me 1200. So base address here is 1200. After that, you can simply apply this formula and you can find the address of the required element. Okay, again same formula apply करो. Second step में 1200 plus 2 into 1700 minus 1300.
2000.
1200 plus 800, this will give you 2000. Okay, sometimes they will directly give you the base address, sometimes they will not give you the base address, and you have to find the base address first, then you can apply this formula. Okay, so this kind of question they will ask in mid-sem as well as in the end semester. Okay, in the GATE also they will ask this kind of question. GATE में थोड़ा सा अलग तरह का क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं, वो हम थोड़ा आगे जाके डिस्कस करेंगे. Okay, so this is all about your one-dimensional array. So now we will move to the two-dimensional array.
Sir, this same question could have been done like starting
in a
from...
different way.
Yes.
I understood. 1300 only, right? Starting from this location, right? You are saying?
Yes, sir.
Starting from 1500 itself, we can do
Yes,
that, right?
yes.
हाँ, बट मैं इसलिए ऐसा बोला क्योंकि हम यहाँ पर ये जो फॉर्मूला है इसको हम अप्लाई करना चाहते हैं. Okay, we want to get everything into this formula so that I can find out. Obviously, in GATE point of view, if you do, then you do not need to perform this step. You want to get to the answer only. But exam में जब करोगे, so you need to show both these steps. You need to find the base address first, then only you will apply this formula and you can get the answer. Okay. टू डायमेंशनल एरे. ओके, हम टू डायमेंशनल एरे को कैसे रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं? इंट, लेट अस सपोज दिस इज, मैं यहाँ पर वैल्यू लिख रहा हूँ mn लिख रहा हूँ, तो डजंट मीन कि ये mn है, ठीक है. सो mn. Okay, now this will create a two-dimensional array of 0, 1, 2 m rows and 0, 1, 2 n columns. Okay, so this will basically create a two-dimensional array of m rows and n columns. We know that. But what do you think? In your memory, when you write something like this, int mn, is it going to be stored like this, like a box, like a square? No. Array is a collection of similar type of elements stored in a contiguous manner. Okay, contiguous manner. अगर ये मेरा, let us suppose this is my entire memory location, this is my whole memory, and I define a two-dimensional array, it is not going to be stored like this. It is not going to be stored like this because this is not contiguous. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पर अगर उसका हम लोकेशन देखेंगे, so let us suppose this location is 10, this is 14, this is 18, this is 22. After that, this can be anything. But in case of array, my next element should come at 26 only, जो कि नहीं आ रहा है मेरा यहाँ पर. If you see, my next element is not coming at the location 26, but somewhere. Let us suppose this is 50. This location is 50. Now this will be 54. This will be 58. This will be 62, and so on. So are you getting it? In case of array, my elements are supposed to be stored in a contiguous manner. But if I simply store my two-dimensional array like this, then it is not giving me that contiguous thing. So in a case of two-dimensional array, the elements are not stored in this way, but in a different way, and that is that can be understood with the help of big Indian, not Indian notation. Big Indian notation. Okay, in this big Indian notation, what we have? We have a row measure order, and we have a column measure order. Okay, we have a row measure order and we have a column measure order. So in case of row measure order, what we have? We store the element row by row. और एक example ले रहा हूँ मैं यहाँ पर. ARR, let's suppose 2, 3. 2 and 3. So number of rows is 2, and I'm simply defining the elements. Let's suppose 1, 5, 8, 3, 7, 6. These are my elements. Okay, so in case of row measure order, RMO जिसको बोलेंगे हम क्या करेंगे? एलिमेंट्स को रो वाइज स्टोर करेंगे. फर्स्ट आई विल स्टोर ऑल द फर्स्ट रो, then I'll store the second row, then I'll store the third row, and so on. So if this is my entire memory, okay, starting from some 0 to some 20,000, and here I got the location, and it is, let us suppose, 100. Okay, so यहाँ पर if I use row measure order, how the elements are going to be stored? The first row will be stored first, then the second row, then the third row. इसको अगर हम normal box के form में देखेंगे, तो it will look something like this, right? This is the first row, 1 and 5. The second row is 8 and 3. The third row is 7 and 6. Okay, this is the 0th row, first row, second row. This is the 0th column and first column. Okay, so this will be represented in the, or this will be stored in the memory, something like this. We store the first row entirely, that is 1 and 5. Then we move to the second row, that is 8 and 3. then move to the third row, that is 7 and 6. So 100, 104, 108. See, now if you see, all the elements are in a contiguous manner. 112, 116 and 120. Okay, so this way the elements are basically stored when it comes to a row measure order representation of a two-dimensional array. Okay, I hope it is not that much difficult to understand. Okay, similarly, if I talk about
So you have declared ARR 2 and 3, so there will be two rows.
ओके ओके, हाँ, टू रोज है, राइट। मैंने थोड़ा सा उल्टा कर दिया, तो हम इसको क्या करते हैं, 3, 2. Now it is fine. 3 rows and 2 columns, right? So 3 rows means first 1, 5, 8, 3, 7, 6, like this. Okay, so 3 rows and 2 columns. Now okay, right? क्या और कुछ दिक्कत है यहाँ पर?
No, sir.
ठीक है, so basically this way ये तो सबको पता था कि हम टू डायमेंशनल एरे को इस तरह से डिफाइन कर सकते हैं. We just give the size of the number of rows and number of columns, then we can simply write all the elements. And if I do this, then a picture, मतलब अगर if we represent in the box form, then it will be looking something like this. But in the memory, it will be stored like this. Okay, 2D array में हम बहुत सारे details में discussion करेंगे. Just try to understand each bit. हम जब धीरे धीरे आगे बढ़ रहे हैं तो सब कुछ समझना, मतलब you have to understand each and everything. Okay, now in case of column measure order, ulta, right? In case of row measure, elements are stored row by row. Okay, first row is completed, then second row, third row, and so on. In case of column measure order, what we do, let us suppose the same array I'm talking about, then it will be stored something like this. The entire first column will be stored first, then it will move to the second column, then we'll move to the third column, and so on. Okay, so again, let us suppose this address is, again 6 elements will be there. 1, 2, 3. Let us suppose I got the memory location as 500. Okay, so the first column will be stored first, that is 187. This is the first column. The 0th column is 187. So 187 will be stored first. Then it will move to the second column, 536. So 536. So 500, 504, 508, 512, 516, and 520. So this way. So as you can see, the the alignment of the elements are different. Okay, in first case, if you talk about the element 5, then its location is second index. But in the second case, if you see the position of the element 5, then it is the 4th index. Okay, so यहाँ से हमारा क्या होता है कि when I'm like in case of one dimensional array, when we are trying to find the address of a given element, it is very easy because the address of that element will always remain same. Okay, for a given base address. But in this case, in case of two-dimensional array, we have to know whether the elements are stored using a row measure order or they are stored using a column measure order, because as you can see, the position may be different. Okay, here the second index, here the 4th index, same element but different index. And different index पे जब आएगा तो obviously उसका जो लोकेशन है वो भी चेंज होगा, उसका जो एड्रेस है वो भी चेंज हो जाएगा. तो यहाँ पर in case of CMO, elements are stored column by column. One column is stored entirely, then we'll move to the next column, then next column. तो यहाँ का जो एड्रेस कैलकुलेशन है वो थोड़ा आगे देखेंगे. बट बिफोर दैट लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड कि हाउ this two-dimensional array basically works. Okay, so two-dimensional array can be considered as an array of one-dimensional arrays. ठीक है, two-dimensional arrays can be considered as an array of two-dimensional arrays. ये हमें ये सब पहले से पता है, राइट, कि हम उसको एक array of one-dimensional array के हिसाब से consider करते हैं. For example, if I have a two-dimensional array something like this, this is 0 1 2 0 1 2, then what I can say, if my array is 3 3, okay, so what I can say, this entire thing is my first element. This entire thing is my first element. Now this is my second element in the array, okay, and this is my third element. As I told, कि तुम्हारा जो array होता है, two dimensional array can be considered as an array of one dimensional arrays. So if I write ARR of 0, 2, that means I want the 0th row and second column. So 0th row and second column. So basically this element. Okay. Now if I write only ARR 0 in a two-dimensional array, if I write only ARR 0, that means I'm not specifying any column value here. Then this will represent, or this will signify the entire first row. The entire first row. After that, if I give the value of the second parameter of the second index for the array, then accordingly either it will be the 0th element of the first row, or the first element of the first row, or the second element of the first row. Okay, so इस तरह से हमारा क्या होता है, बेसिकली हम उसको जो हमारा परसेप्शन होता है अबाउट टू डायमेंशनल एरे, वी हैव टू, और यू कैन डू इट बाय कंसिडरिंग इट एज अ एरे ऑफ वन डायमेंशनल एरेस. ओके, तो इसको अगर हम अभी देखो, तुमने यू अंडरस्टूड व्हाट इज रो मेजर ऑर्डर एंड व्हाट इज कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर. नाउ फॉरगेट अबाउट द कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर, तो एवरीथिंग वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग इन द फॉर्म ऑफ रो मेजर ऑर्डर. दोनों तो एक साथ नहीं कर सकते डिस्कस, तो रो मेजर ऑर्डर के हिसाब से हम डिस्कस करेंगे. Okay, so if this particular array is going to be represented in memory, then it will be something like this. This is the first row, second row, this is the third row. Okay, the first row, this is the 0th index, first index, second index. Now this is the 0th index, first index, second index, 0th index, first index, second index. Okay, now if I consider it is a one dimensional array, it is an array of one dimensional array. This is the 0th index, first row, this is the first index, and this is the second index. Okay, now if I want to access this particular element, what I need to give? I need to give the row index and the column index. So this basically is the row index. Okay, and in this particular row, this element I want to access, so this value, this 1 will become my column index. So this will be array of 2 1, right, if I want to access this element. यहाँ तक समझ में आ रहा है? Any doubts?
Yes sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Now, हाँ,
सर हमें कैसे पता चलेगा जब प्रोग्राम करते हैं कि वो रो मेजर है कि कॉलम मेजर है?
that is not in your hand. That is completely compiler dependent, कि वो रो मेजर ऑर्डर में स्टोर कर रहा है या कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर में स्टोर कर रहा है. एंड यू डू नॉट नीड टू फाइंड द एड्रेस. ओके, तुम्हें एड्रेस कैलकुलेशन करने की कोई जरूरत भी नहीं है. यू कैन जस्ट सिंपली गिव लाइक व्हिच इंडेक्स यू वांट द एड्रेस फॉर, एंड इट विल गिव यू द एड्रेस. तो तुम्हें बेसिकली ऐसे मैथमेटिकली कैलकुलेट करने की जरूरत नहीं है, बट एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू हमें क्या करना पड़ता है कि मैथमेटिकली कैलकुलेट करना पड़ता है उसका एड्रेस क्या होगा, इसलिए हमें ये सब पढ़ना पड़ रहा है.
बट सर स्टोर तो हम ही कर रहे हैं ना.
नहीं, तुम स्टोर कर रहे हो, तुम कैसे स्टोर कर रहे हो?
So input
Do you
कैसे
have the
store करना है?
ability? Okay, let me ask you one more thing. Do you have the ability to store an array at a particular location as per your wish? Can you do
No
that?
sir, no sir.
No.
लेकिन मैं बोल रहा था
Right?
सर कि कैसे स्टोर करना है वो तो डिफाइन कर सकते हैं ना सर, कि वो पहले कॉलम में स्टोर होगा या पहले रो में स्टोर होगा.
No, you cannot do that. What we do while defining a two-dimensional array, what we do, we write something like this. Yes. Now it is the compiler that will decide कि मुझे ऐसे स्टोर करना है कि ऐसे स्टोर करना है. You simply, while defining an array, you write like this, or do you give any other parameter for row measure or column measure? You don't do anything, right? You simply write ARR of 2, 3. Inside that, all the elements you mentioned. Okay. Now it is the compiler who will decide कि मुझे यहाँ पर row measure order में store करना है या column measure order में store करना है. So there are some compiler who follows RMO, there are some compiler who follows CMO, and it will not create any kind of difference. Accordingly, it will calculate the address, and if you ask for ARR, let us suppose 2 and 05, then it will automatically give you as per मतलब जैसे भी तुम्हारा स्टोर हुआ होगा उस हिसाब से बुक में दे देगा. Every time 05 will not give you the same value, right? Means every time 05 will give you the same value, but उसका address हमेशा तुम्हारा same होगा. You are not getting it. See, while defining an array, you just write this, yes or no. Yes बोलते चलो, जहाँ तक समझ में आ रहा है मुझे yes बोलते चलो, कोई एक जन, ठीक है. While defining an array, we simply write like this, yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, it is the compiler who decides कि मुझे ये वाला फॉलो करना है कि ये वाला फॉलो करना है, and we do not have any control over that. So if you want to check over different compiler, if you want to check whether this compiler has used row measure order or it has used column measure order, what you can do, you can simply go for finding the base address first. इसका base address पहले निकाल दो. Base address को कैसे निकाल सकते हो? Simply try to find the value of ARR. ARR will give you the base address. Okay. After finding the base address, what you do, you try to find the address of element 5 or any other element. First element और last element को छोड़ के any other element. Because first element and last element उनका address same होगा, whether it is row measure order or column measure order. As you can see, 1166. Okay. But other elements, their location will vary. So what you can do, simply find the location of 5. Okay. And again, you won't be able to, you can able to figure it out. देखो जैसे कि तुम location of 5 to find out किया. Okay. So from that and using the base address, you can see कि after how many elements how many elements 5 is there. कितने एलिमेंट के बाद 5 स्टोर किया गया है. सो फ्रॉम दैट यू कैन फिगर आउट वेदर द कंपाइलर इज यूजिंग रो मेजर ऑर्डर और कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर. अगर एक ही एलिमेंट के बाद 5 तुम्हें मिल रहा है देन डेफिनेटली इट इज अ रो मेजर ऑर्डर. इफ 3 एलिमेंट के बाद तुम्हारा 5 स्टोर हो रहा है, यू कैन कंक्लूड कि द कंपाइलर इज यूजिंग कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर. बट यू डू नॉट हैव एनी कंट्रोल कि तुम इसको रो मेजर ऑर्डर में स्टोर करना चाहते हो या कॉलम मेजर ऑर्डर में स्टोर करना चाहते हो. अगर तुम कंपाइलर लेवल में कुछ कोडिंग करोगे देन इट इज पॉसिबल. Is it clear or you have some more doubts? You can ask if you have doubts.
सर
हाँ
सर जब पॉइंटर यूज करते हैं तो सर सिंगल एरे रहता है तो स्टार एरे प्लस आई करते हैं. जब
वो आएंगे उस पे आएंगे हम उस पे अभी मत सोचो. और कुछ RMO CMO द रिप्रेजेंटेशन में ओके इसके ऊपर हमारा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है, ठीक है, ये ध्यान में रख के चलो. सो अभी CMO को भूल जाओ, खाली RMO को फोकस करो. सो इफ यू आर स्टोरिंग यूजिंग RMO, if the compiler stores using RMO only, then my elements will be stored something like this. And as a two-dimensional array basically is a collection of one-dimensional array or is an array of one-dimensional array. So this will be my first element in the two-dimensional array. This will be my second element in my two-dimensional array, and this will be my third element in my two-dimensional array. जहाँ की मैंने लिखा है zeroth index, first index, second index. Inside that we have even more indices. Okay. यहाँ पर okay. Pointer वाले बात पे आते हैं. Let us suppose I write ARR. Only ARR I write. मैं थोड़ा सा एक दूसरा एग्जांपल देके उसमें अच्छे से ये करता हूँ पहले. Let us suppose this address is 100, 104, 108, 112. This is 116, 120, 124, 128, 132. राइट, ये तुम्हारा ARR है जो कि एक 3-dimensional array है, सॉरी 2-dimensional array 3. Okay, now if I simply want the value of ARR, what it will be? अगर मैं ARR का वैल्यू पूछूं तो क्या होगा इसका वैल्यू? ARR is a 2-dimensional array which is considered as an array of 1-dimensional array, right? So when I ask for the value of the name of the array, that is the constant pointer, so it basically gives me the address of the first location of the array. Do you understand this? Name of the array basically gives me the address of the first location. ARR अगर मैं लिखता हूँ, this basically is address of the first element of the array. ये हम जानते हैं, बेस एड्रेस तुम्हारा वही होता है. Okay, that is the base address. That is the base address. Okay, now here the first element is which one? This one is the first element, 0, 1 and 2, because we are considering it is 2-dimensional array, basically array of 1-dimensional arrays. लेकिन जब मेमोरी में स्टोर होगा तो कुछ इस तरह से ही स्टोर होगा. Okay, so 0 index, first index, second index, under this 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Now when I am looking for the address of ARR, it basically gives me the address of the first element of the array. That means this is the first element, the 0th element, and it will give me the address of that element. Okay, now this is an entire array, and the address of this entire array is basically what? Because in the last class I told you I do not need to store the address of each and every element of the array to access the elements in that array. I just need to store the address of the first element. You remember that, right? So when I am asking the address of the first element of the array, it basically gives me the address of this array only, which is nothing but the address of the first element in the first 1D array. Okay, which is nothing but the address of the first element. समझो अच्छे से, ठीक है? धीरे धीरे हम आगे बढ़ेंगे, लेकिन at each point you have to understand कि यहाँ पर जब एरे बस में लिख रहा हूँ, in case of a 1-dimensional array कैसा होता है, just try to imagine that. In case of a 1-dimensional array, when I want to find the value of the name of the array, तो क्या होता है कि we get the value of the address of the first element. We get the address of the first element, right? In case of a 1-dimensional array. Similarly, 2-dimensional array is also basically a 1-dimensional array where each element is a 1-dimensional array, right? तो यहाँ पर मैं उसी को यहाँ पर represent किया है. This is one element, this is one element, this is one element. So if I ask for the address of this, if I ask for the value of the name array, it will basically give me the value of the address of the first element, that is this one. Okay, तो इसका एड्रेस क्या है, इस एरे का एड्रेस क्या है, इस एरे का एड्रेस बेसिकली जो तुम्हारा फर्स्ट एलिमेंट है उसका एड्रेस है, जो तुम्हारा फर्स्ट एलिमेंट है बेसिकली उसका एड्रेस है। यहाँ तक हम समझ पा रहे हैं क्या?
Yes, sir.
Both the lines, address of the first element of the array, that is the base address, which implies address of the first element in the first one dimensional array. So if you simply write ARR, it will basically give you 100. If you simply write ARR, it will basically give you 100. Okay, now only having the base address is not sufficient. We want to access all the elements present in the two-dimensional array represented like this. तो यहाँ पर अगर मैं लिखता हूँ कि वैल्यू एट ARR, व्हाट इट विल गिव मी, वैल्यू एट ARR मुझे क्या देगा बोलो तो? अगर मैं सिंपली ARR लिखता हूँ देन इट विल गिव मी 100, राइट? इफ आई राइट वैल्यू एट ARR मुझे क्या देगा?
Value at
Any ideas?
first position.
Value at address 100.
which is okay, लेट सपोज मैं यहाँ पर कुछ वैल्यू लिख देता हूँ 5, 8, 9, 3, 7 कुछ भी ऐसे वैल्यू है, ठीक है? तो यहाँ पर अगर मैं वैल्यू एट ARR लिखता हूँ तो क्या देगा ये वैल्यू?
5.
आर यू श्योर इट विल गिव 5? थिंक अगेन। अभी हम पहले वन
Sir,
डायरेक्शन में
sir,
जा रहे थे,
it will-
उसको हम
it
फिर
will-
से रिवर्स डायरेक्शन में आ रहे हैं।
Will it give 5, 8, 9?
Huh? It will give again 100. Okay, it will again give me 100. क्यों? Because this is basically the two-dimensional array. ठीक है? Now this is basically the first element of the two-dimensional array. First element of the two-dimensional array, which is nothing but my one-dimensional array. Are you getting it? This is basically, if I write star ARR, this basically is the first element of my two-dimensional array, which is nothing but a one-dimensional array. This thing is basically the first element of two-dimensional array, which is nothing but the first one-dimensional array. ओके, और एरे का वैल्यू क्या है? उसका बेस एड्रेस है। एरे का तो कोई सिंगल वैल्यू नहीं होता, उसमें बहुत सारे एलिमेंट्स होता है, तो किसी वैल्यू के हिसाब से हम एरे को नहीं जज कर सकते। सो द वैल्यू ऑफ द एरे इज बेसिकली द बेस एड्रेस। Okay, now this will give me, array will give me the base address of the two-dimensional array, that is the address of the first element. And यहाँ पर element क्या है मेरा? one-dimensional array है. That is why it gave me 100. Okay, similarly value at ARR is क्या है तुम्हारा? जो तुम्हारा first one-dimensional array का जो first element है उसका address है. So that is why it again will give me 100. Now if I write value at ARR, 2 pointers, if I write something like this, now this will give me 5. Are you able to imagine this? जैसे कि ये हम लेते हैं कुछ, okay, this is 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Okay, इसका नाम है तुम्हारा A. This address जो array का नाम है, इसका नाम है A. Okay, now when I write A, it basically gives me the base address of this entire array. It gives me the base address of this entire array, right? अभी इस entire array का जो base address है वो क्या है? Address of the first element, yes or no? A means address, or I can say base address of the entire array. A equal to base address of the entire array. Base address of the entire array is what? मैं सेम चीज को फिर से बोल रहा हूँ कि the address of the first element, first one dimensional array. A का जो तुम्हारा बेस एड्रेस होगा वो क्या होगा? एड्रेस ऑफ द फर्स्ट वन डायमेंशनल एरे, मतलब इस वाले एरे का जो तुम्हारा एड्रेस होगा, बेस एड्रेस होगा, और इस वाले एरे का जो एड्रेस होगा, दैट इज बेसिकली द बेस एड्रेस ऑफ द एंटायर एरे. आर यू एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस और नॉट? ऊपर का भूल जाओ, यहाँ तक ये वाला समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं? बोलो पहले मुझे, यस और नो?
यस सर.
नो नहीं, ऐसे ये बोल के नहीं, पूरा कॉन्फिडेंटली बोलो यस, नहीं तो नो. Okay, so most of you are not being able to understand, I think. See, read this line. When I'm writing A is an array, right? Could be one dimensional, could be two dimensional, could be three dimensional, anything. Just consider A is an array. So if I ask what is the value of A, what you say? कि it is the base address of the entire array. ये clear है? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is the base address of an array? What is the base address of an array? It is basically the address of the first element. Yes.
Yes, sir.
It is basically the address of the first element. So when we are saying it is a one-dimensional array, the first element is an element itself. But when we are talking about a two-dimensional array, the first element is basically an array, right? So उस array का मुझे जो value मिलेगा, उस array का जो value होगा, that will be the base address for my entire array. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
ये अगर तुम्हारा 100 होता है, ये अगर तुम्हारा 106 होता है, सॉरी 112 होता है, ये अगर तुम्हारा 118 होता है, या कुछ भी वैल्यू ले लो, ठीक है? तो if I ask you कि what is the value of this array, what you will say? What is the value of this array? Can you say 5? Can you say 8? Can you say 7? No, you cannot say, because these are the elements of this array. If I say what is the value of this array, you are going to say 100. Means the base address of that particular array. What is the value of this array? If I say, even though we have stored elements, what is the value of this array? We will say 112. क्योंकि जो एरे का जो नाम होता है वो बेसिकली उस एरे का फर्स्ट एलिमेंट का एड्रेस होता है, राइट? बिकॉज इट्स अ कांस्टेंट पॉइंटर. सो दिस टू लाइन बेस एड्रेस ऑफ द एंटायर एरे, तुम्हारा ए का क्या होता है? हाउ डू यू अंडरस्टैंड इट? कि इट इज द बेस एड्रेस ऑफ द एंटायर एरे. नाउ द बेस एड्रेस ऑफ द एंटायर एरे मीन्स एड्रेस ऑफ द फर्स्ट 1D एरे, क्योंकि फर्स्ट 1D एरे इज माई फर्स्ट एलिमेंट ऑफ द 2D एरे. And because it is the first element of the 2D array, इसका जो भी एड्रेस होगा, that will be the base address of the entire array. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
समझ में आ रहा है ना पक्का?
Yes, sir.
Or I will try some other way maybe. There is I don't know why you are not being able to understand this. ओके, काम करते हैं, आज यहीं पर रखते हैं, ठीक है? आज यहीं पर रखते हैं. वी विल फ्रेशली स्टार्ट अगेन. ओके, maybe I'll have to figure out some other way to explain this.
सर